You made a couple good points there. One is like the single entity idea, and I don't usually like MLS Buzz on Twitter. He's so rude all the time. I don't like it. That's really the only thing I don't like. He's so negative and rude all the time. But he made a good point here. He said Charlotte are trading 2 of their 5 expansion picks for $1 million in allocation money. That's smooth from them, but clubs having their players taken from them for next to nothing that they worked to sign, right? They scouted and found these players all on their own just for those players to be sold off for another team's profit, right? So it's not like Charlotte's like, we want this player, we're going to take him and use him, and all for the betterment of the league, right? Single entity. Well, they're not even keeping those guys. They're just like, well, who wants these guys so we can have some more money? Like, it feels very weird and wrong, right? And it's only wrong because in the grand scheme of how global soccer works, it's the opposite of that. Sometimes I get caught up on the weirdness of MLS, but it is what it is for a reason. We don't want to go into that today, but like you made a good point there that you got to follow these rules and you got to use them to your best ability, however they look to world soccer.
Well, an expansion draft itself is an American product, and it follows other American sports. Hockey, we just saw it with the Seattle Kraken. The NFL does it. Major League Baseball did it. I mean, it is a non-pro rel type function or mechanism to help get players or enter the league with special consideration for you as the incoming team that everybody else had already had at some way, shape, or form. So my take on the MLS Buzz thing was that all the other teams that came into the league from the fire on had this kind of mechanism and consideration. So the notion that like all these other teams are now in some hardship because they had to give up a player or so to Charlotte, it's all like it all comes around to all the other teams. So I'm not going to feel bad for Austin having to give up a local guy because Austin did the same thing to all the other teams who did the same thing to all the other teams. It's just a known thing in the league. Now we could debate whether or not having an expansion draft itself is worthwhile or even valuable to the teams, but I think the notion that it's forcing a hardship on the other teams is kind of absurd.
I agree with that as well, but also expansion's not happening anywhere else in the world in soccer. So that's like, and part of that is because there's no pro rel, right? If we don't need expansion, all you have to do is buy a USL club, right? If there's pro rel, and eventually they'll work their way up. Just add another slot to MLS and you got a team that can probably compete the following year. They're all ready with infrastructure and everything. You don't need to give them any boosts to help them compete. But expansion draft is what it is. It's fun to talk about those things. So I'm not mad or anything like that. So